And we are back live for another episode of Ecommerce Growth Stories. I know we've been on break the last week. We're sorry. We just needed it very much. But I have a super special guest today in the building from Canada, and this guest couldn't have been in the podcast in a much better time, given everything that's happening in the last month. So please let me welcome you to June Lee. She's the founder and CEO of ClickInsight. Thank you for being here, June. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on. This has been a great podcast to follow, and I'm
Thank
honored to
you.
be here with you today.
I am so excited to have you, and I have a million questions to ask you. But first of all, just because this podcast is also video, audio, it's on LinkedIn, it's on YouTube, it's on everywhere.
Right.
For the
Perfect.
people that do not know you, please tell us who are you and what are you doing with ClickInsight?
Sure. So, June Lee, founder and CEO of ClickInsight. ClickInsight is a specialist in digital analytics, and we're located in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We've been here since 2005, and we've just morphed and changed with digital analytics all the way from when it was still called web analytics. We provide consulting, training, all the way from strategic to the end. And what we like to say is that uh, data analytics definitely has great potential, right, to unleash what might be hidden, and we're here to help, right? We're here to help as your guides in this journey, and it is certainly a never-ending journey that's always changing for us. And not only do we do consulting, but we also provide training as well.
And it's so needed, right? When it comes to
Yeah,
data.
yeah.
I thank you for introducing yourself. I met you while crashing your clubhouse room back. I
Oh,
don't
we,
even know
we
how much
welcome
time.
everybody.
I don't even know how long it was because I swear like everything just flew by for me in the last period. I think it was maybe like 5 or 6 months ago when you
Yes,
were on a
February, I
clubhouse.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And you were on clubhouse with Steen, with Jim Stern, and with
All for
uh,
Voy.
yes, Paul. And I was like so struck with with I mean obviously you have an analytical mind, right? But for someone that just focuses on, I guess, a different layer of data and looks at data in a different way, because at the end of the day, when we talk about data, everyone is super subjective and we're using it to justify our decisions sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So when I met you, I was very struck with you. So I'm happy to have you here. I want to ask you a lot of questions, but I think we
All
can
right.
easy. Yeah, I'm about to grill you with the questions right now. I was
Yeah.
waiting on this. So, June, the question on everyone's mouth right now is what's happening with privacy? I feel like everything in digital marketing right now has taken a crazy turn. I mean, it was expected, but what are your thoughts about what's happening right now?
Yeah, and actually the session on Clubhouse you joined was on privacy. That's how
Yeah.
we got started and we got meeting. And privacy is, a lot of people are concerned about it, rightfully so. And but it really is something where like it's time has come. And everyone who uses data and works with it, analytics needs to be really careful and treat uh, data privacy rights respectfully. So it is something that everyone should be spending time to understand, and also the differences globally, whether it's Europe or North America or South America, wherever it is all different. However, fundamentally, it is that we should be transparent about it and not try to hide it and not try to get around it. So it's a growing area. It fits very well into the area of data governance. And if we do want to use it, it is also, and this is part of what was discussed back then, and I think it was February, January, whenever we got together the first time, that
Yeah.
it actually is an opportunity for organizations, whether it's brands or the analytics companies that work in using data, to make it a competitive advantage, right? To be transparent and actually help people understand how it's being used, how they might get into trouble if they're not managing their profiles appropriately, and actually how to question the folks who are working with the data, like in a way that makes sense, right? So more and more, it's the language of consent is something
Yeah.
that is getting to be more prevalent. It's still very difficult, and I think it's confusing, right? And it's definitely a good topic that we are looking to have more conversations with our clients and understand as they evolve through their journey, understand what consent really means. How can we make this easier to understand, not just them, but also their clients? Because it really shouldn't, marketing should get involved in this. It's not just the purview of lawyers, and it shouldn't be every time a privacy issue comes up or, oh, it's over to the corporate lawyers. Like this should be discussed by marketing as well. And I know we're going to get to Google Analytics 4, but that is one area that Google Analytics has and Google have made a platform that informed consent and with that in place, then if there is less data in certain places, interpolating what's missing, that now gets to be a really, really interesting challenge, and one that with Google Analytics 4, they're going to be using machine learning to try and fill the gaps. So it's certainly going to be a bit, it's definitely a new and different way, but something that marketers need to understand the limitations, but also the opportunity of that feature.
I agree, and in a way, like I'm thinking, is really the e-commerce world ready for this type of consent?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you noticed, I was saving this question for you. I haven't been posting about it because
Yeah.
I just wanted to save this for you so I can repurpose it afterwards. But
Yes, definitely.
honestly, what I do every day, I see a lot of websites, right? E-commerce
Yeah.
websites. And you know that everyone is asking you for your email so
Yeah.
they can give you the 15% off, whatever.
Yeah.
It's extremely rare, if not, like you probably can tell where I'm going. I never see people being asked when they give their email to agree with the terms of services of the
Yeah.
website or their privacy policies. And a lot of websites, e-commerce websites that we give our credit cards, to, and our personal data, they don't even function with the privacy policy on the website where it's very clear what is their data used for. So
Yeah.
what do you think about that? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's and that's why there is an opportunity for marketers, if they are the ones who are now informing the customer, like helping them to be more aware of what their rights are, how they can protect themselves, and help them to gain that knowledge, right? That's a different type of relationship with the customers. But you're right, and there are no, yes, there's legislation, and there's a lot to manage, though, right? And it's,
Yeah.
I don't think that it's unlikely that any government body will be able to enforce it, and that when they do, they're going to go after those who, the big organizations that have the deep pockets, and that's what's happened here in Canada as well, like the Canadian anti-spam law. There are some high-profile big brands that have been fined many millions of dollars. I think the risks, though, to privacy are all the smaller sites, right, where they haven't adequately performed the risk assessment and have
Yeah.
taken the steps to guard against that. And even the informing customers about the fact that maybe multi-factor authentication, where it's texting a code to your phone, that's actually not that secure. Like, it might seem to be secure, but that
But it's
can
not,
be
yeah.
interrupted. And a lot of people think, oh well, I've got that text to my phone set up when I log into this site, and I'm protected. And in fact, that's actually makes it easier for someone to hijack your info. So it's that kind of informed consent, but education as well, that is a big challenge out there, right? And so many stories about ransomware and everything else. Like, the individual person is also at risk for that.
It is. It is. It's a very, very big problem. And honestly, like people do not talk about this enough.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I just, this is one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of SMS marketing because, as you know, I guess the termination of the SMS, from a knock perspective, right? You might
Yes.
be receiving the same from the same phone number, different texts that are for different purposes, and you're like,
Yes.
you have to ask yourself a question like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Because I received the code from a store for a
Yes.
discount, but I also received my Twitter recovery from a password on the same, the same termination and the same origination of the SMS. And this is, I mean, I'm not saying email is the safest place to be, but I think it's safer than SMS because there's a lot of fraud and a lot of security issues that occur with SMS. And I don't think there has been enough education in the market when it comes to SMS marketing. I just think people are using it because it's promoted that much.
Yeah.
But enough about SMS. I'll fight that battle
That's
another
probably
day.
another topic to like
Yeah,
the
we should do a clubhouse
chatbots.
about this.
Chatbots. That's definitely another topic for discussion.
Yes, yes, it's insane. But I promise the people on LinkedIn, because people are watching. Let's talk about GA4.
Sure.
I am not aware about anything regarding with GA, so I just want to tell everyone that's watching, I am a noob. I didn't have time. I'm suffocating in first-party data with what I do. So I just want you to give me like the crash course on Google Analytics 4 and tell me what does it bring, how it can help us do better.
Yeah, yeah, and so let's just why is it Google Analytics 4? So
Yeah.
Google Analytics itself was came into the Google universe when Google bought a company called Urchin, and Google Analytics 4 is the fourth major upgrade, and it's a significantly different version from the third version, which they don't refer to it as Google Analytics 3, but it's called Universal Analytics. And
Okay.
the difference is that Universal Analytics evolved from the times when websites were mainly pages, right? It's a page view, and as you click, you go to the next page, the next page, and the next page. So that's the way that Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, the version that's in use by most people. That's its legacy and its background. So Google Analytics 4 is a completely new, built from the ground up product, and it is very, very different, and it is intended to be more take into account that it's not just someone who sits in front of one device. It could be multi-device, and it's a user who might have 3 or 4 different devices, right? And it's not pages anymore, it's mainly interactions. So for many years, we have hacked, if you want to call it that, Universal Analytics and previous versions of Google Analytics, such that a page view can be anything you want.
Yeah.
So now that is being called an event, right? And it's
Yeah.
really an interaction, and you configure it to be what you want, and it should stitch together how a user is behaving on multiple different devices, whether it's tablet or phone or laptop, and it allows those who have come up with some sort of user parameter, client ID, member ID, whatever it is, in the back end of someone's customer relationship management CRM system, use
Yeah.
that ID to stitch everything together. So what that helps is that if there's attribution, that is like the question is, how is my marketing performing, and where should I continue to spend my money? And for this particular campaign that was so successful, what were the changes that led to that being successful, so that you can inform what strategy should be taken the next time around, right? So analytics should answer questions, right? And it should be decision-making support. It's really not about the data. It's about making business better and improving performance. So the difference with Google Analytics 4 versus previous is that there's much less baked in that's out of the box. It's much more customizable,
Yeah.
and can be configured so that it's more driven by the way the business is actually operating. You're not forced into the view that what Universal Analytics is. So there's a plus and a minus there. I mean, one of the great things with Universal Analytics and previous versions is that someone who does not really understand how to configure digital analytics, there's a standard set of reports that you can start with. But the problem with that is that then if as you evolve and it doesn't quite work, then your amount of customization that you need is not really there, and you start to have to sort of hack the system and get around certain
Yeah.
things. So the great thing about Google Analytics 4 is that it gives you more freedom. You can, with a well-designed system, it should last you a lot longer. It should have good data governance, good quality, and Google's using the term that it's durable analytics, and that it's not just for now, but it will last and it will scale and will grow with you. And you can configure it so that it's flexible to the way your business is actually set up and run. So with all things that are more configurable, you then need more expertise, because if you don't configure it properly, it's still not going to fit, right? And that's where we always say you got to start with strategy and understand the types of questions you need to ask, the way you're going to segment your data, and like for e-commerce, for example, if there are certain attributes, how you look at your product line, not just one linear way that you do it, but you segment it by brand name or the audience
Category.
type,
Yeah.
the use, and you might have seasonal sales and all this other stuff that are going on, promos. You have to think about all those different ways that you're going to slice and dice your data, and then set it up so that it can do it.
It's
So
it's I
yeah,
love it. I love it. I mean, for me to be able to track everything, like when it comes to e-commerce, you want to see
yeah,
how much time people spend to
yeah,
look at a product, how much, back and forth they did between different filters or if they use search. But you know what's the problem in e-commerce? Oh, it's very hard to find companies. I mean, I think only the larger brands have data people or work with someone that really understands data or get consulting
yeah,
from people with data. So the
yeah,
mid-size layer is very underserved in terms of data, even though they have a lot. Like there's a lot of brands that make great amounts of revenue and they acquire a lot of customers, but they don't do data driven decisions at all, because
yeah,
usually the way they use analytics, the classic analytics that we have right now, is just on the checkout page, for instance.
yeah,
They don't
yeah,
have search parameterized, they don't do enhanced e-commerce, and
yeah.
it's very hard to, if I mean, I'm not disrespecting Google in no way, but it's very hard if you use their own FAQs to try to set
Yes,
up your analytics,
yes.
especially if you're not good at it. So will analytics 4 come with a better support for people that are just entering, or it's not for people that like if you don't know analytics good, you should just stay with and pay you or someone else to help?
Well, I think the Google, any tool, and it's not just Google Analytics, digital analytics, like any tool that you have, whether it's a car or a microwave or something like that, right?
Yeah.
If the use doesn't match the tool that you bought, it's not going to work. And whether you're buying a car or microwave or anything like that, you don't want to overbuy, right? Or else you end up like the car. For example, you buy a car and it's not good for if you have to regularly haul a family or and their friends around. If you have a nice little Porsche or something like that, you can't quite fit in the back. So what we advise those, whether they're big brands or mid-size, is to really think of the strategy and what is it that you're trying to get this analytics tool to do for you. And for the most part, like analytics on its own, data itself shouldn't be the end state. And it's really what's the performance objective. So even if you take a store, right, and yes, you're focused on the fact that you need to convert and get
Yeah.
revenue from it. But think of a physical store. It's not just the checkout and the flyer. There's the whole merchandising of the physical
Yeah.
store itself and how you get people to walk through. And in the physical store, a lot of time is spent trying to figure out what makes sense on where you place things, right? And there's all this science about counterclockwise, clockwise. You start with the vegetables and you end up at the dairy or whatever it is, right?
Exactly.
So each e-commerce store needs to figure out what that customer journey is. And if they don't understand the customer journey, there is no best way to merchandise a particular product. All the facets that you search on how that works depends on how your customers shop. And we think that the whether it's mid-size or a big brand, they should focus on trying to understand that journey and what are the key things you need to learn about the behavior, and then collect the data, not the other way around. Because what we find is that if they think, oh, there's lots of data and the issue is we don't know how to analyze it, it's really the question first that you need to think about. So if you take a physical store and the objective is to have revenue increase in the store, like for the people you're bringing in, what products go together, and so therefore you merchandise them together, and when they come in for one thing, they'll buy other things, and that's how you increase your revenue. And that's where online, like the recommendation, people will buy this, also buy this. Does that really make sense all the time? Does it change seasonally? Does it change depending on the segment? And that's where, or your analysis, for example, you said you're trying to put together all of that. If they have a hypothesis or something like that, then see whether that information is there, and then run a test, right? That's the thing, is that whatever you see offline, you don't know for sure it's going to work. And that's one of the big things that we see, is that with all the tools evolving and flexibility, is that the test and learn, whether it's A/B or multivariate or whatever it is, that actually is what's needed to really have people ramped up. So it's not really the data itself. It's, you start out with what the outcome is you want, the kind of performance increase you want. You understand for the customer who's on the site, whether it's e-commerce or information, how they make their decisions, and then be there at the right time. Run some tests if you think that it may not be merchandised correctly, and then move on to other aspects. So with GA4, what's great is that there's more and more things that are built in this time around than Universal Analytics. One, for example, that's fairly popular that's built in is scrolling, right? And
that's so cool.
yeah, and so it's no longer like bounce rate. It used to be like someone comes and lands and leaves, and with previous, like Universal Analytics out of the box, no customization. If someone lands like a blog post or something, or even they come to check out a product and they sit there and they hit the multiple tabs, they read the reviews, but nobody's been collecting that data. There's no difference in when someone comes and lands on the page and leaves versus someone who spent 10 minutes reading all the reviews, right? You need to have collected that data. So more of that is built into Google Analytics 4 than previously.
I love that.
Yeah, and because of that, though, when someone is moving to Google Analytics 4, we advise that to implement in parallel and still have Universal Analytics. Is that what people have been looking at before? Because it's quite different. It's almost the same as if you were using the feet and inches way of measuring distance, the imperial method, and then you go to metric, right? The numbers are not the same. And
I have that struggle.
Or ISO versus whatever. And so there needs to be a bit of a change management. People need to think differently. Like bounce rate is not a metric that comes baked into Google Analytics 4. And the way duration, time on site, like it's different. So if you're trying to compare to last year or something like that, and you haven't been running in parallel, that's going to be a bit of a jarring experience, and people won't be able to evaluate what's going on. And so because analytics and data, its main benefit is tell you, are you improving or not? Are you on the right track? Do you need to make changes, right? So you need to maintain that continuity somewhere. And that's why we recommend that if you're going to go to Google Analytics 4, like start now and run it in parallel and have all that discussion about like, why is this different? And try to understand how to use it. Because if you do want to check back like to last year's holiday campaign and you've just switched and there's a break, like how can you compare how you did last year if now you're on a different basis? So it just run parallel, and with the use of Google Tag Manager or some other tag management tool, it's not that much work to actually fire it to both at once. You don't have to paste two sets of code onto the page.
Code,
do that, and
I know a lot of cases like that.
and you should be using a tag management system anyway, because like, there's tons of marketing campaign pixels for tracking view through and all sorts of conversions that some sites might have 20, 30 different marketing campaign pixels, right? And that just increases the page weight, slows things down. So if people are still doing that, definitely look at a tag management system to try and speed that up.
It's insane how many people do not use Google Tag Manager. I'm
Or
shocked, like
or a tag, or Adobe
anything.
for analytics use Launch, yeah.
Or enhanced e-commerce. It's a total different conversation. I just want to unpack a bit what you said, because
Sure.
I think what you said, like comparing the in-store experience, which is a journey, of course, of decision
Yes.
making and cognitive dissonance, and back and
Yes.
forth. It's the same thing in e-commerce, right? I love this example because it's so easy to understand. Like, I guess a lot of companies forget that even though it's a different background, it's still we're still the same people, and we still have to, get to a decision. And
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant how you put it. I'm gonna quote you on this. And also another thing that you said, that I like, is that you have to have some sort of objectives, or you want to know what you desire to monitor or to track before you just use analytics tool to inform your decisions. Because oftentimes you just use it because everyone tells you that you need to have analytics, and you're just sitting there like how I sit in there, and I'm trying to see how many people came on the blog and clicked something so I can
Yeah.
see if it makes sense. And I think it's a big problem, because even though there's so much um, information on the internet when it comes to analytics in general and data, I just think that all of these amazing events that you and Steen and Jim and everyone is doing, or Simo with his whole,
Yeah.
awareness, it's just all these things are not seen, because unfortunately in e-commerce, things that are not, like, I guess, I mean, they're important, but they're not sustainable for a business to function long term. They just go in the back, and we just see, TikTok videos and bullshit. Sorry, but it's so frustrating. And I think it's a very hard sell for us in the space of data and strategy, because especially for me, because I'm the liaison from data to marketing,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and it's so hard for us to have this sell. So yeah, thank you so much for how you put everything together. I think it was brilliant. So going back to GA4, you were mentioning
Yes.
something about the machine learning layer. Tell me
Yes.
more about that, because I'm
Yeah.
fascinated with machine learning.
Well, it's Google, right? And
Yeah,
about the cloud platform, a lot of investment there, and that's what they're bringing forward within the tool. So part of the challenge with privacy, and we talked like iOS 14 and so on, where the attribution, the information may not be there. People may actually not consent to be tracked,
yeah,
and therefore there's going to be holes in the data. So what Google is spending a lot of time and investing in GA4 is to try and interpolate and fill in the blanks, if you want to call it that. And they are not investing in that for the prior versions like Universal Analytics. That
yeah,
will not be there, whereas it will be in Google Analytics 4. And so therefore the audiences and in trying to interpolate that and it's not getting around privacy, it's working with the data that you do have to fill in the blanks. So in some ways it's like predictive analytics,
yeah,
but in more in real time, right? So the machine learning will be looking at data. However, at the same time, what that means though is that analysts still have to check, right? It's not going to be perfect, and like the self-driving car that sometimes does the wrong thing, machine
yeah.
learning will not be perfect, and it's learning all the time. So there still needs to be somebody there who's looking at it, and if it doesn't make sense, then don't take action on it. And I think that's the difference in the role of the digital analyst, is understanding what to look for, and instead of working in the data as much, also looking at the integrity of the data and whether or not it makes sense. So there's ways to leverage it, make it work more effectively and efficient for you. But also there's a bit of caution, like this is still early days, right, with machine learning, and there's all sorts of crazy stories about like if you talk about people trying to train data and trying to train an AI to learn how to identify sheep. I don't know if you heard this story where most sheep are in the
No.
middle of pastures, right? So when it started saying there were sheep where there were no sheep, it's because it got trained to identify grass. It
Oh my
identified
God.
grass as sheep. So when it was showed pictures with grass in it, it said there were sheep. so those kinds of things, you just have to be aware that weird things can happen. And so because it is early days, the digital analyst now needs to be aware of that when they are choosing to use some of the machine learning that's there. So you can't ever park your brain. Never, like analysts definitely cannot park their brain.
Yeah.
But it definitely is more interesting. I would say it's very, very exciting to have the opportunity to use this. And if it does work, then it takes some of the number crunching and having to interpolate that data by hand. It would be very, very difficult to try and manually fill in the blanks. So the fact that Google is using that knowledge to try and do that at scale across all the accounts and the data they have, that's very, very exciting.
So this is awesome, and you were mentioning predictive analysis, and I remember someone sent me a link with how Analytics 4 will do predictive analysis on customer lifetime value based on RFM segmentation. And remember, this is my this is my favorite topic. So at the moment, the way I do predictive analysis based on RFM is not by using behavioral data from the website. I use transactional data, so historical data.
Yeah.
So Analytics 4 doesn't have access to the historical data from Shopify, for instance. If you're a Shopify store, I mean, you have access to some goals and some things you can put that Google can track, but you don't have access to all the order average price and the price that you sell, the discounts. Like there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So how will you get what I'm saying? So like
Yes.
when it comes to customer lifetime value, you have to take everything into calculation to be able to do it. So I was very curious, how can Google, I mean, it's Google, but how like technically speaking, from like structurally speaking, how they can do the predictive analysis on RFM without having the full picture of the situation.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating, but how will they do it? Do you
I
have
think
any
like
idea?
the work you do offline will identify the key things that influence that decision, right? So
Yeah,
there's always been ability to import data.
yeah,
So
of course.
there are two ways to do it. There might be a way to actually import it into Google Analytics and do it that way. Or you take the behavioral data for Google Analytics 4 and you pipe it into BigQuery. And then in the
Okay, and
cloud
then
platform tools where you got TensorFlow and all that other stuff, you do it actually in the cloud platform. So you could
okay,
upload your data into the cloud platform tools like BigQuery, and then you also pipe in the behavioral data for Google
yeah,
Analytics 4, and you use the whatever your clients might have as
get the
far as
idea.
identifying the person, right, to stitch everything together. So now you have timestamp behavioral data that you can then merge with your transactional data as well. And if they do have enhanced e-commerce or some sort of e-commerce collected, right, then
Yeah,
you can reconcile that, like the actual financial information is the final version of the truth. One area that our clients, even with Universal Analytics, have found useful, even though the financial system is the real version of the truth,
yeah,
the online e-commerce data, even though it's not 100%, it's directionally correct most of the time.
yeah.
And it helps them make decisions quicker. So it's not accurate, but it's precise enough
It's behavioral.
and even if there's 10% or 20% that don't allow cookies, which is what Universal Analytics needs. If something's changed 20% or down 15%, you're looking at percentage changes. The absolute number really doesn't matter. The more important thing is
The
that it's
difference.
down or up, right? And
Yeah,
that typically is correct. And so that's good enough information for them to make decisions now.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so we have had some clients who typically have relied on offline data from the back-end system, and they've gotten around the fact that it's not accurate, but it's directionally correct
Yeah.
in changes. And so they are able to make much better, much more informed decisions and around their marketing and changes in offers and things like that, much quicker, and they're much more agile in that respect. So that's where digital analytics pays out. It's not the 100% accuracy, and it's whether it can be a better decision-making tool so that they can get more out of what's happening in the marketplace right now.
Yeah,
But you're
'cause
right.
it's
There's all sorts of missing pieces, and it's
yeah.
never 100%, right? But you do what you can, and then you learn from it. And oh, I might have to go back and collect this data. So next time you get it and you move forward. And in doing that,
Yeah.
the predictive cycles can get the learning cycles a
Accurate.
lot faster. Yeah. And the
I like
important
it.
thing is to learn and progress. Like, it's not going to ever be perfect, but like 80% that you take action on is better than trying to get a perfect model that you never get there, right? And by that point, the opportunity is gone. So the great thing about digital analytics is that it's something that can help you learn and take action a lot faster than in
Then yeah,
previous.
I think a
Yeah.
mixture of both is
Yeah.
very important,
Yeah.
because right now for me is a pain, because I have to do the segments and I have to make sure
Yes.
I do the scores, and then I upload them in analytics, and then I have to make sure that I follow the goal line. And we were thinking about doing this integration with analytics, the classic universal analytics, but then we were like, like if analytics 4 is gonna do this predictive analysis, it might be more accurate, because I guess it's a fuller picture. And I'm
Yeah.
just curious how they do the RFM. Like, I was fascinated. I was reading, and usually, like you can do it either by netting or by bidding. So I'm super curious how they will do it. Will it be on the same model as IBM? IBM has this tool. I forgot the name right now of it, but they have
Yeah.
this tool when they do RFM, but like way better than we do it. But it's a $250,000, that tool, to get it. But it's really amazing. So I'm excited. But let's go back to I don't want to talk about customer lifetime value anymore, people.
Oh, it's definitely no. It's important. It's
But it's
definitely
one of the,
important.
the most important things
Yeah.
for me from an e-commerce perspective.
Yeah.
I think being able to do this from a behavioral perspective and mix behavioral data with transactional data,
Yeah.
like, I'm
Yeah.
sold. That's the only thing I saw. And when I saw it, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is the future of e-commerce. This is the future of online commerce, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
I think everything that's happening right now, June, is kind of forcing people to go in a very holistic, fundamental space,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and all this,
It's a
tricks
good
and
thing.
silver. Yeah, we need it, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have any foundation to go back to, because is the barrier of entry in digital marketing or e-commerce is very low at the moment,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And it's very easy for everyone to call themselves a digital marketer. So, but in a way, I look at it as an opportunity for a very nice cleanup in what
Yes.
happens on the market, and allow people that actually know what they're doing to be able to help the companies that need their help, instead of everything for everyone that's happening right now. So you were telling me that you have an event about Google Analytics 4. Tell me, what is this event about, and how can I sign up for it? I want to
Yeah.
sign up for it.
Okay, let me know if this came through. Did it come through in the chat?
Yes, it did. Let me
Okay,
see.
perfect. And we had issues before with a redirect URL. So let me know if this causes you trouble, and I'll
It's
send you
okay.
the raw URL. But because it is mapping through. So what this is about using the information in Google Analytics 4 to create audiences that will then leverage the machine learning capabilities that will be coming with GA4. So we explain what that's all about. It sounds, I know, like a lot of very technical information, but the session is intended to, it's interactive, so be explaining a bit about it, how it can help marketers as well as analysts, and there will be a live Q&A. So it's
I just
anybody
signed up
can
for it.
attend who is interested. It's 2 p.m. Eastern next Thursday.
I just signed up for it right now.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I'm very fast. I'm very fast. I saw building new audiences with machine learning. I'm sold, because
Yeah.
this audience thing is always like, it's funny. I'm gonna say it. I don't know. I'm gonna upset some people. I'll just say it as it is. You see that lookalike audiences are trying to get like a brightness to them, like it's something new right now in the market. But you know
Yeah.
very well that this has been done for so long. But right now, everyone is talking about lookalike audiences like it's something that is never unheard of. So in a way, I'm really happy for people that call it out and
Yeah.
and just speak about it like it's just an audience, but like learn how to build it, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel to add different names to it when it's just using better data, cleaner data, durable data, as you
Verbal
called
data.
it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that. And you can use that to lower your acquisition cost and bring better traffic to your website and better conversions. I guess this is the season of cleaning house, cleaning data, and I guess customer journey is gonna
New
become the next
start.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that everyone needs to work on. Thank you
Yes.
for being here today.
Oh, my pleasure.
I love talking to you. Tell me, how can people reach out to you if they need to? I'm hoping a lot of people are reconsidering their analytics right now, and probably they have it 2 times on the website, as I've seen most of that on every page.
Yeah.
How can people reach out to you and your team?
Yes. So through our website, clickinsight.ca. So ClickInsight.ca. And if you Google me, June Lee, in Canada, in Toronto, you'll probably come up with our site. Our information is very good there. And what we aim to do is really understand the potential, and the technical comes later. We mostly start with the customer journey, and the outcome that our clients are trying to achieve, because that's really more important. And the data is there to serve getting that outcome, right? The data is not important if it can't do that, and all the data in the world won't serve if the strategy isn't there.
100%. June, thank you for being here. And also,
Thank
she's on
you.
LinkedIn. She's on LinkedIn,
Yes,
but
I'm
don't
only.
but don't send her sales pitches, please. Because I had complaints. I had complaints. Don't forget to sign up for the event for the 24th of June, building new audiences with machine learning using Google Analytics 4. This was a great session. Every time I talk to you, I get smarter. So thank you so much for everyone watching YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and for you for being here. This was amazing.
Great, thank
I'm
you.
excited for the future. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone. See you guys next week. Bye.
Yep. Thank you.